I sat at my brother Ryan's engagement dinner in an upscale Chicago restaurant while my mother finished telling Madison's wealthy parents how Ryan was the family's only success, and I couldn't even finish my startup properly. Madison suddenly grabbed my wrist under the table, her eyes wide with recognition. Wait, you're Laney Porter? The Laney Porter? You founded Tech Bloom? The entire table went silent. My family didn't know I sold my failed company for $47 million 18 months ago. The silence stretched out like a taut wire ready to snap. Madison's perfectly manicured fingers were still wrapped around my wrist, and I could feel the pulse of recognition thrumming between us. Her parents, the prestigious Blackwood family, who owned half of Chicago's commercial real estate, leaned forward with sudden interest. Madison. Honey. Ryan laughed nervously, his voice pitched just a bit too high. I think you're confusing my sister with someone else. Laney had a little computer thing, but it went under. Right, Laney? I opened my mouth to agree, to keep playing the role of the family failure. But Madison wasn't having it. She pulled out her phone with her free hand, her engagement ring catching the restaurant's ambient lighting. The 3-carat diamond that Ryan had bragged about for weeks suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the bomb she was about to drop. No, I'm not confused at all, Madison said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who commanded boardrooms. I studied Tech Bloom as a case study at Harvard Business School. Professor Williams called it one of the most innovative, sustainable tech packaging solutions of the decade. My mother's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Packaging solutions? Laney was just playing with recycled materials in her garage. Playing? Madison's eyebrows shot up. She turned her phone toward the table, showing a gleaming article from Fortune magazine. Is that what you call revolutionizing how the entire tech industry ships products? The biodegradable cushioning system alone has prevented approximately 2 million pounds of plastic from entering landfills. My father scoffed, the same dismissive sound he'd made when I dropped out of law school. Madison, dear, I think there's been some misunderstanding. If Laney had done something that significant, we would know. She's always had delusions of grandeur, ever since she was young. We've tried to keep her grounded in reality. The words stung exactly as much as they had 3 years ago, when I'd begged him for $500 to keep my servers running. But Madison wasn't done. She was scrolling through her phone with purpose, and I recognized the look in her eyes. It was the same look venture capitalists got when they smelled blood in the water. Delusions of grandeur, she repeated slowly, savoring each word. That's interesting, Mr. Porter, because according to this article dated 18 months ago, Tech Bloom was acquired by Nexus Industries for, she paused dramatically, $47 million. Emma, my younger sister, nearly choked on her bread. That's impossible. Laney lives in a studio apartment. She drives a 10-year-old Honda Civic. She couldn't even afford to bring a plus one tonight. Ryan's face was turning an interesting shade of purple. This is ridiculous. Madison, someone is obviously pranking you. My sister's company went bankrupt. She told us herself that she was shutting everything down. I said I was closing the company. I finally spoke, my voice quiet but steady. I never said it was bankrupt. The table erupted. My mother's voice rose above the others, shrill and disbelieving. You're telling us you sold a company for $47 million and didn't say anything? While we struggled? While your father took extra shifts at the hospital? While Emma couldn't afford her last semester at Northwestern? I wanted to remind them that when I asked for help, just $500, they'd told me I needed to fail completely to learn my lesson. But Madison squeezed my wrist again, and when I looked at her, she had an odd smile on her face. Actually, Madison said, her voice cutting through the family chaos like a knife through butter, I need to correct myself. The initial acquisition was for $47 million, yes. But I should know the exact figure because my firm facilitated the deal. The restaurant seemed to shrink around us. Even the waitstaff, who'd been discreetly hovering, stepped back. Your firm? Ryan's voice cracked. You said you worked in venture capital, not mergers and acquisitions. We do both, Madison replied smoothly. And I personally oversaw the TechBloom acquisition, which means I also know about the performance bonuses that kicked in 6 months later. The environmental impact metrics exceeded all projections. The additional patents filed. The expansion into European markets. She looked directly at me, and I saw something in her eyes that made my stomach flip. The final payout after all performance bonuses was $73 million. My mother's wine glass finally completed its journey, but instead of reaching her lips, it slipped from her fingers and shattered on the table. The sound was like a starting pistol for what came next. 73 million, my father repeated, his voice hollow. $73 million. Madison leaned back in her chair, satisfied, making Laney wealthier than everyone at this table combined, including my parents. The private dining room manager appeared within seconds to clean up my mother's spilled wine, but nobody moved. We all sat frozen in this bizarre tableau, while a young man in a crisp white shirt carefully picked up glass shards and mopped up Malbec that was spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. "This is a mistake," my mother finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Madison, sweetheart, you must be confusing my daughter with someone else. A different Laney Porter. It's not an uncommon name." Ryan grabbed onto this lifeline immediately. "Exactly. This is obviously a different person. Laney, tell her. Tell her about your actual company. The one that failed. The one where you were making crafts or whatever it was." "It wasn't crafts," I said quietly. "It was biodegradable packaging technology using mycelium-based materials and recycled ocean plastic." "See?" Ryan turned to Madison triumphantly. She was playing with mushrooms and garbage, not exactly Fortune magazine material. Emma had been furiously typing on her phone since Madison's revelation, and now her face was draining of color with each swipe of her finger. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Oh my God, it's real." "What's real?" my father demanded. Emma turned her phone around. There I was, on stage at TechCrunch Disrupt, presenting to a crowd of thousands. The photo caption read, "Laney Porter, founder of TechBloom, demonstrates revolutionary packaging solution." "That could be photoshopped," Ryan insisted, but his voice was losing conviction. Emma kept scrolling. "There's more. So much more. Speaking engagement. At MIT. Panel discussion with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos about sustainable technology. A TED Talk with..." She paused, checking the number twice. 2 million views. 2 million? My mother gasped. I remembered that TED Talk. I'd worn a borrowed dress because I couldn't afford to buy one. I'd been living on ramen and peanut butter for 3 months to afford the prototype materials. But I couldn't tell them that. Not yet. Madison pulled up the video on the restaurant's wall-mounted screen that was usually reserved for sports games. There I was, larger than life, standing on the iconic red circle. "The future of commerce isn't just digital." My recorded voice filled the room. "It's sustainable. And it starts with reimagining the simplest thing we throw away every day, the box it comes in." My father stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Turn it off." "Why?" Madison asked innocently. "Aren't you proud of your daughter?" "Proud?" He whirled on me. "You let us think you were a failure while we nearly lost the house? Your mother cried herself to sleep worrying about you. We took out a second mortgage to help Ryan with his wedding, and you were sitting on $73 million? When you were about to lose the house," I said, meeting his eyes for the first time in years, "I asked you for $500. Do you remember what you said?" His jaw clenched. "That was different. You said I needed to fail completely to learn my lesson. Mom said some people aren't meant for success." Ryan told his poker buddies I was the family failure, and laughed about it. Emma posted on Facebook that she was embarrassed to have me as a sister. "I never posted that publicly," Emma protested. Madison cleared her throat. "Actually, you did. October 15th, 3 years ago. You also posted, and I quote, 'Some people need to accept their limitations instead of chasing impossible dreams.' Looking at you, sis." Emma's phone clattered to the table. How do you know that? Madison smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. Because your sister documented everything. Every cruel word, every dismissive comment, every time you told her to give up. She pulled up another website on the screen. She wrote about it anonymously in a blog called The Founder's Diary. The screen filled with my words, years of pain, formatted into neat paragraphs. The header image was a photo of my workspace, a garage with equations written on every wall, empty cup noodle containers stacked in the corner, and my laptop held together with duct tape. This blog, Madison continued, is required reading at Harvard Business School. It's been cited in 12 different academic papers about entrepreneurship and family dynamics. It's famous in tech circles. We call it the survival guide for founders from unsupportive families. Ryan stood up so fast his chair fell backward. This is bullshit. You're trying to make me look bad at my own engagement dinner. You couldn't stand that I was finally having my moment. Could you? You always have to be special. Ryan, Madison said coldly, sit down. Don't tell me what to do. You're my fiancée, not hers. Actually, Madison said, about that. But Emma interrupted, reading from her phone with growing hysteria. January 20th. 4 years ago. Today my family held an intervention. They said my startup was an embarrassment. My father called me delusional. My mother said I was wasting my MIT education. My brother suggested I might be mentally ill. My sister recorded it and sent it to my extended family as proof. I needed help. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. You kept screenshots of our text messages, where we told relatives not to lend you money, where we called you. She couldn't continue. Where you called me a waste of potential, I finished for her. Where you said I was destroying the family reputation. Where you created a group chat specifically to discuss my failures. My mother was shaking her head repeatedly, as if denial could change reality. We were trying to protect you. To help you. Help, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You uninvited me from Thanksgiving because you didn't want to explain my failure to Aunt Margaret. You told me not to come to Emma's graduation because you were embarrassed. You introduced Ryan as your only child at the hospital fundraiser. That's not. We didn't mean. My father stammered. Madison stood up and walked around the table to stand behind my chair, her hands resting on my shoulders. There's one more thing you should know. That blog? It has a post from last week. Would you like me to read it? Nobody answered, but she pulled it up anyway. My most recent entry filled the screen. Title: The night everything changes. Tomorrow, my family will learn the truth. They'll discover that while they were calling me a failure, I was building an empire. While they were embarrassed by me, I was changing an industry. And while they were planning my brother's engagement dinner, I was planning my revenge. Not the petty kind. The kind where you become so successful that their dismissal of you becomes the biggest mistake of their lives. Tomorrow, Madison Blackwood, my brother's fiancée, will reveal everything. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served at dinner, with a side of consequences they never saw coming. Emma bolted from the table, and I could hear her heels clicking rapidly toward the bathroom. After a moment of hesitation, I followed her. Behind me, I heard my father demanding answers and Ryan shouting something about conspiracies, but I needed to face my sister alone first. I found Emma standing at the marble sink, gripping the edges so hard her knuckles were white. When she saw me in the mirror, she whirled around, mascara already streaming down her cheeks. $73 million, she said, her voice breaking. 73 million? And you let me think you were living in poverty? Do you know what the last 3 years have been like for me? Tell me, I said quietly, leaning against the wall. I couldn't finish Northwestern. I had to take out private loans with 20% interest. I work 3 jobs. I sell plasma twice a week. Mom and Dad nearly lost the house last year. Dad had a minor heart attack from the stress. Did you know that? The bills were crushing them. And you just sat there? With millions? I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, then handed it to her. Look at the scheduled transfers. Emma took the phone with shaking hands. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through 2 years of payments. Porter Holdings, LLC. That's you? I've been paying Mom and Dad's mortgage for 2 years through that shell company. Every month, $3,500. The hospital bill from Dad's heart attack? Paid in full by an anonymous benefactor. Your student loans? Check who bought them out last year and reduced the interest to 0. She kept scrolling, her expression shifting from anger to confusion. The down payment for Ryan's wedding venue. The new roof on Mom and Dad's house. Emma's car repair last month? This is all you? All me. But why? She looked up at me, genuinely bewildered. Why hide it? Why let us think you were a failure? Why let me say those horrible things about you? I took my phone back and pulled up a different screen. A text message exchange from 3 years ago. Read this. Emma read aloud in a whisper. Laney, Dad, I know I've asked before, but I really need $500. Just for 2 weeks. The servers will shut down if I can't pay, and I'm so close to a breakthrough. I'll pay you back with interest. Please, Dad. Laney, this has to stop. You need to fail completely to learn your lesson. Some people aren't entrepreneurs. Some people are meant to be employees. There's no shame in that. Laney. But Dad, this could really work. The prototype is getting interest from major companies. Dad. Enough. You're delusional. Your mother and I have discussed it. Not another penny. You need to hit rock bottom to come to your senses. It's for your own good. Emma handed the phone back. That was 6 months before you sold the company. 5 months and 18 days, I corrected. I remember because I had to sleep in my car for a week to save money for ramen so I could keep working. The breakthrough happened 2 weeks after that text. A biodegradable polymer that could replace bubble wrap but dissolve in water within 30 days. And you never told them? Tell them what? That they were wrong? That their lack of faith nearly destroyed the biggest opportunity of my life? That if I'd listened to them, if I'd given up when they wanted me to, none of those innovations would exist? Emma sank onto the small velvet bench beside the mirror. But you still helped us, after everything. You're my family, I said simply. Being cruel doesn't stop you from being family. It just stops you from being trusted with the truth. She was quiet for a moment, then asked in a small voice, Ryan's wedding venue. That was a $50,000 deposit. You paid that? Yes. Even though he called you a failure to his friends? Even though he bet them money on when you'd give up and get a real job? You knew about the bet? Emma nodded miserably. I was there. I took the bet too. I said you'd give up within 6 months. That was 3 years ago. The door to the bathroom opened, and Madison walked in, her designer heels clicking on the marble floor. We need to get back. Your brother is having a meltdown, and your parents are threatening to call their lawyer. Their lawyer? I almost laughed. For what? Fraud, apparently. They think you've somehow stolen money and hidden it from them. Madison moved to stand beside me, and I noticed she'd positioned herself protectively between me and the door. Also, the owner of the restaurant wants to speak with you. I may have accidentally mentioned that you're his silent partner. Emma's head snapped up. You own this place too? 40%, I admitted. Giovanni was about to lose everything during COVID. I'd just gotten my first acquisition payment. It seemed like the right thing to do. This is insane, Emma muttered. What else do you own? What else haven't you told us? Madison answered for me. The Portland building on 5th Avenue. That medical clinic on the south side that provides free care. The scholarship fund at your old high school, though that's in your grandmother's name. Oh, and she's the angel investor behind about 15 female-founded startups in Chicago. Emma stood up abruptly. I need to apologize. Laney, I'm so sorry. I was jealous and petty and— Save it, I said. Not unkindly, but firmly. Apologies now, after you know I have money, mean nothing. You weren't sorry when you thought I was a failure. You weren't sorry when you posted about being embarrassed by me. You're only sorry now because I'm successful. The truth of it hung in the air between us. Emma opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. You're right. God, you're absolutely right. I'm only sorry because now I'm the failure in comparison. You're not a failure, I said. You're 26 with a degree from Northwestern and your whole life ahead of you. But you are someone who chose cruelty when kindness would have cost you nothing, and that's something you'll have to live with. We walked back to the dining room together, Madison's hand finding mine in silent support. The scene that greeted us was chaos. Ryan was pacing like a caged animal. My parents were huddled together, whispering furiously, and the restaurant owner Giovanni was standing awkwardly by the door. There she is, Ryan pointed at me accusingly. Giovanni says you own half this building. He says you saved his business. He says you're the reason he could keep his staff employed during the pandemic. Giovanni, a gentle 60-year-old Italian man who'd immigrated with nothing but recipes and determination, looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry, Laney. I didn't mean to cause trouble. When the young lady mentioned you were here, I just wanted to thank you again. You saved not just my restaurant, but my family's future. My mother stood up slowly. How much of our lives have you been secretly controlling? Controlling? I repeated. I've been helping. There's a difference. The mortgage company called it a refinancing windfall, my father said slowly, pieces clicking into place. They said an investor had bought out our loan and restructured it. That was you? Yes. Emma's scholarship that appeared out of nowhere for her final year? Also me. The anonymous donation to my department at the hospital? Me. Ryan exploded. So what, you've been playing puppet master? Getting your kicks watching us struggle while you secretly pulled the strings? No, I said firmly. I've been protecting you from the consequences of your own choices while staying away from the toxicity you created. There's a difference between helping family and trusting family. I could do one without the other. Giovanni cleared his throat. Should I go? No, Madison said suddenly. Actually, Giovanni, you should stay. Because there's something else everyone needs to know. That night, 3 years ago when Laney slept in her car, she was actually in your parking lot. You found her the next morning and let her use your restaurant's Wi-Fi and bathroom for a week. You fed her leftover soup every day without asking questions. Giovanni's eyes filled with tears. She was so thin, so tired. But her eyes, they had such determination. When she came back a year later and offered to save my restaurant, I thought it was a miracle. A year later, my father repeated. She was already successful a year later, and we didn't know. Because a year before that, you told me I needed to fail completely, I said. So I let you think I did. Ryan stopped pacing and turned his attention to Madison, his expression shifting from anger to suspicion. You know what? This is all a little too convenient. My fiancé just happens to know all about my sister's secret success? Just happens to have all this information ready to share at our engagement dinner? Madison smiled, and for the first time, I saw something predatory in it. You're right, Ryan. It is convenient. Perhaps we should discuss how we met. We met at the Millennium Club, Ryan said quickly. You were there with clients, I was there with my boss. We hit it off. That's what you think happened, Madison said, pulling out her phone again. But actually, I'd been a member there for 3 years, and I'd never seen you before. You were only there because someone anonymously paid for your membership that month. Someone who knew I'd be there that specific Tuesday. Someone who suggested you might enjoy the club's wine tasting event. Ryan's face paled. That's insane. You're saying, I'm saying I've been investigating the Porter family for exactly 1 year, Madison announced, her voice carrying the same authority I'd heard in countless boardrooms. Your sister's story fascinated me. Here was this brilliant woman who built something extraordinary while her family actively tried to destroy her confidence. I wanted to understand what kind of people could be so blind to genius in their own home. My mother gasped. "You've been studying us? Like lab rats? Like a sociological phenomenon," Madison corrected. "The family dynamics of successful entrepreneurs are well documented. But Laney's case was unique. Complete familial rejection, followed by secret financial support. It was too intriguing to ignore." "So, our entire relationship," Ryan said slowly, "our engagement, everything, it was all fake?" Madison laughed, and the sound was like crystal breaking. "Oh, Ryan. Sweet, narcissistic Ryan. Did you really think a woman like me would fall for a middle manager who takes credit for other people's work, who brags about his family connections, while simultaneously destroying his sister's reputation? Who still lives in a condo his parents help pay for?" "How dare you?" Ryan started, but Madison wasn't finished. She connected her phone to the restaurant's screen again, and suddenly we were looking at emails, Ryan's work emails. "Recognize these?" she asked sweetly. "These are proposals you submitted to your company. Innovations in sustainable packaging, green technology solutions, revolutionary biodegradable materials. Those were my ideas," Ryan protested. "Really?" Madison swiped to another screen. "Because here are text messages between you and Laney from 4 years ago. She's explaining her polymer research, her distribution models, her sustainability metrics. And here you are, 2 weeks later, presenting those exact concepts to your board as your own innovation." I stared at the screen, seeing my own words transformed into Ryan's presentations. "You kept those texts?" "I kept everything," Ryan said defensively. "It's not illegal to discuss ideas with family." "No," Madison agreed. "But it is fraud to claim credit for intellectual property that isn't yours, especially when you use those stolen ideas to get promoted." Twice, Giovanni, still standing by the door, whistled low. "This is better than the soap operas my wife watches." Emma, who had been silent since we returned, suddenly spoke up. "Madison, who are you really? No normal venture capitalist does this level of research for a blog story." Madison's smile widened. "You're right. I'm not just any venture capitalist. My full name is Madison Blackwood Enterprises. My father is Thomas Blackwood." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Thomas Blackwood?" my father repeated. "The Thomas Blackwood? The man who owns half of Silicon Valley?" "The very same," Madison confirmed. "And I've been documenting everything from my book about family dynamics in entrepreneurship. Working title: Blood and Betrayal: How Families Destroy Innovation." Ryan stumbled backward, catching himself on a chair. "You were using me for a book?" "I was studying you," Madison corrected. "The engagement was just a means to get closer to the family dynamics. I needed to see how you all interacted with Laney when you thought no one important was watching." "The ring," Ryan said weakly. "The 3-carat diamond. That cost me $20,000. Madison pulled off the ring and set it on the table. "Actually, it's moissanite, worth about $300. I was curious if you'd check." "You didn't." My mother stood up, her dignity in tatters but still fighting. "This is entrapment. It's illegal. We'll sue." "For what?" Madison asked calmly. "For revealing the truth? For showing evidence of Ryan's intellectual property theft? For documenting Emma's sale of insider information about Laney's company to competitors?" Emma went white. "What?" "I never." Madison pulled up another document. 3 months ago. You were contacted by Sustainable Solutions Incorporated. They offered you $5,000 for information about TechBloom's polymer formula. You gave them everything you could remember from conversations with Laney. "That was just. They said it was for research." Emma stammered. "Corporate espionage," Madison said flatly. "A felony. With a paper trail." The room was spinning. Even I hadn't known about Emma's betrayal. "Emma, how could you?" "I needed the money," Emma cried. "I didn't think it would matter." Your company was already sold. But the patents weren't, Madison explained, and you gave them enough information to file competing claims. Laney had to spend $200,000 in legal fees to protect her intellectual property. Because of you. My father slumped in his chair. This can't be happening. Madison continued, relentless. Would you like me to tell everyone about the loan you took out in Laney's name, Mr. Porter? Or the way you've been telling your colleagues that your daughter consults for you, using her success to boost your reputation while simultaneously telling the family she's a failure? Stop, I said quietly, and everyone turned to look at me. Madison, that's enough. But Madison shook her head. No, it's not. They need to hear this last part. She looked directly at me. Tell them about Christmas. Madison, tell them, or I will. I closed my eyes, remembering. Last Christmas, you all went to Aunt Margaret's house in Colorado. The family tradition. The one I'd been excluded from for 3 years because I was an embarrassment. You were invited, my mother said weakly. You chose not to come. I pulled out my phone and played a voicemail. My mother's voice filled the room. Laney, about Christmas. We think it would be best if you didn't come. Your presence would raise too many questions, and frankly, we're tired of making excuses for your life choices. Maybe when you've gotten yourself together, you can rejoin family events. Your father agrees. Don't call back. We need space from your drama. I was in Japan that week, I said quietly. Closing the biggest deal of my career. I spent Christmas alone in a Tokyo hotel room, watching my family post photos on Instagram, reading the comments where you all joked about how nice it was without the black sheep there. Madison took my hand. But you weren't really alone, were you? I looked at her, confused. What do you mean? I mean, I was there too. Different hotel, same conference. We met at the hotel bar on Christmas Eve. 2 Americans alone in Tokyo. We talked until sunrise. Ryan's mouth fell open. You two already knew each other? We've been together for 6 months, Madison said simply. The engagement to you? That was Laney's idea. She wanted you all to finally see who she really was. And I wanted to see the family that nearly destroyed the woman I love. The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan's face cycled through so many emotions, it would have been comical if it wasn't so pathetic. Confusion, anger, humiliation, and finally, rage. He lunged toward Madison, but Giovanni stepped forward, his gentle demeanor replaced by something harder. Not in my restaurant, Giovanni said firmly. You will sit down, or you will leave. Ryan collapsed into his chair, breathing heavily. You've been dating my sister while pretending to be engaged to me? The engagement was never legal, Madison said calmly. I never filed any paperwork. Never put you on any accounts. Never even told my real friends about you. You were a research subject, Ryan. Nothing more. My mother found her voice, shrill and accusatory. This is sick. You're both sick. Manipulating us. Lying to us. Lying? I laughed, but there was no joy in it. You want to talk about lying? Should we discuss the family Christmas letter you sent out 2 years ago? The one where you told everyone I was in rehab for drug addiction? That's not. We never. My mother stammered. Madison pulled up a PDF on the screen. There it was. The Porter family Christmas letter, complete with a cheerful border of holly and snowflakes. She read aloud. We're asking for prayers for our eldest daughter, Laney, who is currently seeking treatment for her struggles with substance abuse. It's been a difficult journey, but we're hopeful she'll find her way back to stability. I was in Seoul, finalizing a partnership with Samsung, I said. But you told 300 family friends I was in rehab. Do you know how many people still ask me how my recovery is going? Emma's head was in her hands. Mom, you said you were just going to say she was taking time to find herself. It seemed kinder than saying she was a failure, my mother said defensively. Kinder? I stood up, years of suppressed anger finally surfacing. You told people I was a drug addict, rather than admit I was an entrepreneur? You destroyed my reputation to protect your own ego? You destroyed your own reputation when you dropped out of law school, my father shouted, standing to face me. You were supposed to be a lawyer, a respectable professional. Instead, you threw away your future for some pipe dream. A pipe dream that made me $73 million. Money you hid from your family. Family? I laughed bitterly. What family? The one that held an intervention to force me into a career I didn't want? The one that called me mentally unstable for pursuing innovation? The one that literally bet money on my failure? Ryan tried to regain control of the narrative. This doesn't change the fact that you and Madison conspired against us. You planned this whole thing to humiliate us. Madison pulled up her phone again. Speaking of humiliation, should we talk about your side business, Ryan? Ryan went rigid. I don't know what you mean. The one where you've been selling exclusive access to your sister's investment fund? The one where you promise entrepreneurs that you can get them meetings with Laney for $50,000 each? My blood ran cold. What? Madison showed me her phone. Screenshots of a website. Porter Ventures Access. Get direct investment from tech's hidden genius. Ryan's face was prominently featured, along with claims that he could provide exclusive access to his sister's fund. 7 people have paid so far, Madison continued. That's $350,000 in fraud. Because Laney doesn't have a public investment fund, does she? Ryan, I said quietly, please tell me this isn't real. He couldn't meet my eyes. It was just, people knew you had money. They kept asking me. It seemed like easy cash. You sold access to me? Like I was a commodity? You were hiding anyway, he exploded. What did it matter? It's not like you were ever going to help any of them. You wouldn't even help your own family. I paid your wedding venue deposit. Anonymously. Like we were charity cases. Like you were better than us. Emma suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly. Stop. Everyone just stop. She turned to me. There's something else. Something I did. And if we're confessing everything tonight, I need to say it. We all looked at her. She pulled out her phone and handed it to me. Look at the drafted email. I read it, my heart sinking. It was addressed to TechCrunch, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and a dozen other publications. The subject line, The Truth About TechBloom's Founder, Mental Illness, Family Theft, and Corporate Fraud. Emma, I breathed. What is this? I wrote it 6 months ago, she said, tears streaming. When I first suspected you had money, I was so angry. I was going to destroy you, make everyone think you were unstable, that you'd stolen the company from someone else, that your success was built on lies. But you didn't send it, Madison observed. No, Emma admitted, because I investigated first, and everything I found just proved how wrong I was. Every source I talked to said the same thing. Laney Porter was a genius who built something incredible from nothing. But I kept the email. I don't know why. Maybe as proof of how terrible I could be. My father grabbed the phone from me, reading the email. His face went gray. Emma, this would have destroyed her. Even if it was all lies. The accusations alone. I know, Emma said. I know what I almost did. I know what I'm capable of. And I can't pretend anymore that we were trying to help her. We were trying to destroy her because her success made us feel small. The room was quiet, except for the soft sound of my mother crying. But Madison wasn't done. Should we talk about the family trust fund? She asked casually. My parents went rigid. What trust fund? Ryan demanded. Madison smiled. The one your grandparents set up. The one that was supposed to be divided equally among the 3 children when they turned 30. The one your parents told Laney didn't exist. I stared at my parents. What? My father's jaw clenched. You weren't responsible enough for that money. But Ryan and Emma were? They were pursuing stable careers. They weren't throwing money away on impossible dreams. Madison pulled up legal documents. The trust contained $500,000 per child. Ryan received his at 30. Emma will get hers next year. But Laney's portion? Her parents had her declared financially incompetent 3 years ago. You had me declared incompetent? I felt like I'd been punched. When? When you started your company, my mother admitted quietly. We thought it was for your own good, to protect you from yourself. Giovanni, who'd been silent, finally spoke. With family like this, who needs enemies? Madison showed another document. Except the motion was fraudulent. You forged medical documents, created fake psychological evaluations. That's a federal crime. Ryan looked between our parents and me, his face dawning with a horrible realization. You took her inheritance? While she was sleeping in her car? While she was building a company worth millions? You stole $500,000 from her? We were protecting it, my father insisted. She would have wasted it on her foolish company. The company worth $73 million? Emma said flatly. That foolish company? I stood up slowly, my legs shaky. I need some air. Madison stood with me. There's more, Laney. We should tell them everything. I looked at her, exhausted. What more could there possibly be? She held my gaze. Your grandmother. The words hit me like ice water. My grandmother is dead. She died 2 years ago. Madison shook her head slowly. No, she didn't. My mother's sobs stopped abruptly. What are you talking about? We went to the funeral. We saw the body. You saw a closed casket, Madison corrected. You saw what Charlotte Porter wanted you to see. My legs gave out and I sank back into my chair. That's impossible. Madison made a call, putting it on speaker. Mrs. Porter? It's time. The voice that answered was unmistakable, though I hadn't heard it in 2 years. Hello, my darling Laney. Grandma? I whispered. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm alive. And I'm about to walk through that restaurant door. The line went dead. We all sat frozen, staring at the entrance to the private dining room. 30 seconds later, the door opened, and there she was. Charlotte Porter, 82 years old, wearing an elegant black suit and pearls, looking healthier than she had in the last 5 years of her life. Hello, family, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. My father shot to his feet. Mother? This is impossible. You're dead. We buried you. You buried an empty casket, Charlotte said, walking slowly but steadily to an empty chair. I decided I'd rather be dead to you than watch you destroy my granddaughter any longer. Grandma, I breathed, standing to go to her, but she held up a hand. Not yet, dear. First, they need to hear this. She turned to my parents. I watched you for years. Watched you favor Ryan despite his mediocrity. Watched you enable Emma's jealousy. But most of all, I watched you systematically try to destroy Laney's spirit. We never. My mother started. Silence, Charlotte commanded, and my mother's mouth snapped shut. I was dying, you know. The cancer was real. The doctors gave me 6 months. That was 3 years ago. But then, Laney came to me with a business proposal. She needed $50,000 to keep her company afloat. You'd all refused to help her. You gave her money? My father asked, incredulous. I mortgaged my house, Charlotte said. The house your father built, the one you thought you'd inherit. I gave her every penny I could scrape together. And you know what she did? She turned it into millions. And the first thing she did with that money was pay for an experimental treatment for my cancer. In Switzerland. The treatment you said was too expensive and probably wouldn't work anyway. Ryan's face was pale. The inheritance. Grandpa's houses, his patents, his investments. Charlotte smiled coldly. Worth approximately $200 million, yes. And it's all going to Laney. I've already transferred most of it. The rest will follow when I actually die, which won't be for many years thanks to my granddaughter. 200 million? Emma whispered. Added to her 73 million? Making her worth nearly $300 million, Madison confirmed. One of the wealthiest women under 40 in America. My mother stood up, her face twisted with rage. You faked your death to give her money? You let us grieve? You let us suffer? The same way you let Laney suffer when she begged for help? Charlotte responded. At least my deception had a purpose. Yours was just cruelty. Giovanni stepped forward. Perhaps we should give the family some privacy. No, I said firmly. We're past privacy. Madison, show them the folder. Madison placed a thick folder on the table. Legal documents. Ryan, you committed fraud using Laney's name. That's 5 to 10 years in federal prison. Emma, corporate espionage, 3 to 5 years. Mr. and Mrs. Porter, fraud regarding the trust fund, forgery, and filing false medical documents. 10 to 15 years each. You're threatening us? My father said. I'm offering you a choice, I said, opening the folder to reveal a different set of documents. Option 1. I press charges. You all go to prison. Your reputations are destroyed. You lose everything. Option 2, Ryan asked weakly. You sign these documents. You get enough money to live comfortably, but not lavishly. Ryan, you get your condo paid off and $200,000. Emma, your student loans are forgiven and you get the same amount. Mom and Dad, your house is paid off and you get $1 million for retirement. In exchange for? My mother asked. Complete non-disclosure agreements. No contact with me for 5 years. No using my name for any purpose. No discussing me with anyone. You essentially agree that I don't exist to you. You're buying us off? Emma said. I'm protecting myself, I corrected. And giving you more than you ever gave me. Ryan grabbed the documents, reading frantically. This says we can't even mention we have a sister in the tech industry. Correct. And if we violate any terms, we have to pay back triple the amount? Correct. My father looked at Charlotte. Mother, you can't support this. Charlotte laughed. Support it? It was my idea. You're lucky Laney is kinder than I am. I would have let you all rot in prison. My mother turned to me, tears streaming. Laney, please. We're your family. We made mistakes, but we love you. No, I said quietly. You loved the idea of me as a failure because it made you feel superior. You can't suddenly love me now that I'm successful. Madison cleared her throat. There's one more thing. The engagement party. The one Ryan's been planning for next month. At the Four Seasons. Laney owns the Four Seasons. She bought it 6 months ago. Ryan's face crumpled. Everything? You own everything? Not everything, I said. Just enough to ensure I never have to depend on any of you again. Charlotte stood up. I believe you have 24 hours to decide. Sign the documents and take the money, or face the legal consequences. She walked over to me and cupped my face gently. I'm so proud of you, my dear. So incredibly proud. Madison pulled out one final document. Oh, I almost forgot. Ryan, that promotion you got last month? The one you've been bragging about? Your company was acquired last week by Laney's holding company. She's technically your boss now. Ryan's legs gave out, and he collapsed into his chair. This can't be happening. It is, I said, standing up. And it's what you all created. You had a daughter and sister who loved you, who would have shared everything with you, who only wanted your support and belief. Instead, you chose mockery and cruelty. So now you get lawyers and contracts instead of love. I headed toward the door, Madison and Charlotte flanking me. But Emma called out, Laney, wait, please. I turned back. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, Emma said, tears flowing freely. I know I was horrible, but I need you to know something. I wasn't always like this. Remember when we were kids? Before the competition and the jealousy? I used to braid your hair, and you'd help me with math homework. We'd stay up late talking about our dreams. You wanted to change the world, and I wanted to write novels. Remember? I did remember. Before the poison of expectations and comparisons destroyed us. I remember, I said softly. I'm in therapy now, Emma continued. Have been for 3 months. Started before any of this came out. I knew something was wrong with me, with how much I hated you for trying to succeed. My therapist says it's about my own fears of failure. That tearing you down made me feel less afraid of my own inadequacy. And I'm sorry. Not because you're rich, not because you're successful, but because I let my own insecurity turn me into someone who could hurt her sister. I'm going to sign your papers, not because of prison, but because you deserve 5 years without my toxicity. Maybe after that, if you're willing, we could try to be sisters again. Real sisters. But only if you want to. I studied her face, looking for deception, but found only genuine remorse. Maybe, I said finally. Ask me in 5 years. We left then, Madison's hand in mine, Charlotte walking beside us with the dignity of a queen. Behind us, I could hear my parents and Ryan arguing, their voices rising as they fought over who was to blame. Giovanni walked us to the exit. Laney, I'm sorry this happened in my restaurant. Don't be, I said, hugging him. It needed to happen somewhere. At least it was with someone who showed me kindness when I had nothing. As we stepped outside into the cool Chicago night, Madison turned to me. How do you feel? Free, I said, and meant it. 3 months passed in a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and new beginnings. My family, faced with the reality of prison, all signed the documents. Ryan was the last holdout, spending 2 weeks consulting attorneys who all told him the same thing. The evidence was damning, and my offer was generous. The day the papers were finalized, I stood in my new office, a corner suite overlooking Lake Michigan. The company nameplate read Porter Innovations in bold letters. No hiding anymore. Madison found me there at sunset, 2 champagne glasses in hand. The Wall Street Journal article just went live, she said. I took the glass, clinking it against hers. How bad is it? For them, devastating. For you, you come across as the hero you are. A woman who built an empire while her family tried to tear her down, then showed them mercy they didn't deserve. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a message from Ryan. The article destroyed me. My company conducted an investigation and found I'd stolen over 30 proposals from you. I've been terminated. My reputation is gone. You won. I showed it to Madison, who shrugged. Play stupid games. Win stupid prizes. Another text came through, this one from Emma. Started my support group today. 7 people showed up, all struggling with jealousy towards successful siblings. Thank you for giving me the push to get help, even if it came through devastation. I'm using the settlement money to go back to school for psychology. Maybe I can help others before they make my mistakes. At least Emma was trying to build something positive from the wreckage. My parents had moved to Florida within a month, taking their $1 million and disappearing into a retirement community where no one knew their story. The last I heard, they were telling neighbors they had 2 children, both boys. Charlotte, my wonderful grandmother, had moved into a penthouse in my building. We had dinner every Sunday, where she'd tell me stories about my grandfather, the original entrepreneur in the family. He would be so proud, she'd say, patting my hand. You inherited his mind and his courage, but thankfully not his family's jealousy. 6 months later, I stood on a stage at MIT, speaking to a crowd of young entrepreneurs. The title of my talk was The Cost of Success When Family Becomes the Enemy. The hardest part wasn't sleeping in my car, I told the audience. It wasn't the 70-hour work weeks or the constant rejection from investors. It was the voice in my head that sounded like my father, telling me I was delusional. It was my mother's words echoing that some people aren't meant for success. It was my brother's laughter when he bet his friends I'd fail. A hand raised in the audience. How did you push through? I didn't at first, I admitted. I internalized it all. I succeeded. But I hid that success for 2 years, because part of me still believed they were right, that I didn't deserve it. It took someone who believed in me. I looked at Madison in the front row to help me realize that hiding my light didn't protect me from their darkness. It just gave them power over my narrative. After the talk, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. My family calls my startup a hobby. They introduce me as unemployed at family gatherings. Your story, it gives me hope. I gave her my card. Call my office. We invest in founders from unsupportive families. We understand the unique challenges you face. That night, Madison and I returned to our shared apartment. We'd moved in together officially after the confrontation, building a life free from the shadows of my past. She was working on her book, which had evolved from an exposé about my family to a larger study on how family dynamics affect entrepreneurship. Emma sent another letter, Madison said, holding up an envelope. Should I throw it away? No, leave it, I said. I'll read it eventually. These letters came monthly, each one documenting Emma's journey through therapy, her growing understanding of her own toxicity, and her work with other jealous siblings. I hadn't responded to any of them, but I kept them all in a box labeled, Maybe Someday. 1 year after the confrontation, almost to the day, I was sitting in my office when my assistant knocked. Miss Porter? There's a Ryan Porter here to see you. He says it's urgent. I hadn't seen or heard from Ryan since his text about losing his job. Send him in. The man who walked through my door was a shadow of the brother I'd known. He'd lost weight. His expensive suit replaced with a simple off-the-rack outfit. His arrogance had been replaced with something I'd never seen before. Humility. 5 minutes, I said. You have 5 minutes. I'm not here to ask for anything, he said quickly. I know I have no right to anything from you. I needed to tell you something. I waited. I've been in therapy too. Court mandated at first, after I was caught trying to use your name again. But then I kept going. And I realized something. I wasn't just jealous of you. I was terrified of you. Terrified? I couldn't hide my surprise. You were always smarter than me. Always braver. When we were kids, you'd have these huge dreams and actually believe you could achieve them. And I knew, deep down, that you would, that you'd eclipse us all. So I tried to make you small, to convince you that you were less than you were. Because if you realized how powerful you were, what would that make me? Ryan, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that your success didn't surprise me. It was inevitable. I just wish I'd been smart enough to support you instead of trying to tear you down. Maybe then I'd have been part of something amazing instead of alone with nothing. He left without another word, and I never saw him again. Later, I heard he'd moved to Portland, started over with a small marketing firm, and was slowly rebuilding his life without using the Porter name. Madison and I got married 2 years after that night at the restaurant. The ceremony was small, intimate, held in Giovanni's restaurant with only our chosen family present. Charlotte walked me down the aisle, still sharp and healthy at 84. Giovanni catered, crying happy tears as he served the wedding dinner. My MIT kids, the entrepreneurs I'd mentored and funded, filled the seats where blood family should have been. During the reception, Madison raised a toast. To Laney, who taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is succeed despite the people who should have cheered you on, and who showed me that chosen family can heal wounds that blood family created. In my response toast, I said, to everyone here who believed in me when my own family didn't. To Giovanni, who fed me soup when I was starving. To Charlotte, who chose truth over comfort. To my founders, who prove every day that dreams don't need permission to become reality. And to Madison, who saw through my walls and loved me enough to help me tear them down. The next morning, a package arrived at our hotel. Inside was a simple card and a flash drive. The card read, I completed my psychology degree. This is my thesis on family jealousy and entrepreneurship. You inspired it. I hope someday you can be proud of me again. Love, Emma. I put the flash drive in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd look at it, but not yet. 5 years to the day after the confrontation, I received a final letter from Emma. This one was different. It wasn't asking for forgiveness or reconnection. It simply said, "The 5 years are up. I've respected your boundaries and will continue to do so until you say otherwise. I just wanted you to know that I've opened a practice specializing in family dynamics and success. I've helped dozens of families avoid what happened to us. Every day, I use our story as a cautionary tale, with details changed for privacy. Every day, I wish I'd been the sister you deserved. If you ever want to have coffee, I'll be here. If not, know that you changed my life by forcing me to face who I'd become. With love and respect, Emma." I looked at Madison, who was reading over my shoulder. "What do you think?" "I think people can change," she said. "The question is whether you want to find out if she has." I thought about the girl who used to braid my hair, who I'd help with math homework. I thought about the years of poison between us. I thought about redemption and second chances. "Maybe one coffee," I said finally. "Just to see." The meeting was awkward at first. Emma looked older, wiser, worn down by her own journey. But when she showed me letters from families she'd helped, siblings who'd learned to celebrate each other's success instead of resenting it, I saw genuine change. "I'll never be able to undo what I did," she said. "But maybe I can prevent others from making the same mistakes." We didn't become close again. The wounds were too deep for that. But we found a cordial distance, a careful peace. She came to my company's 10th anniversary celebration, standing in the back, proud but not presumptuous. I sent a congratulations card when her practice was featured in Psychology Today. Ryan never reached out again. My parents stayed in Florida, maintaining their fiction of 2 sons. But Charlotte thrived, living to 92, long enough to see me become one of the most successful entrepreneurs of my generation, my company valued at over $1 billion. At her funeral, the real one this time, I stood before a crowd of hundreds, not family, but people whose lives she'd touched through the foundation we'd built together. In my eulogy, I said, "Charlotte Porter believed in me when no one else did. She taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you're sleeping in your car with nothing but a dream. It's about who sees your light when others try to dim it." She didn't just give me money. She gave me permission to be extraordinary. And that's a gift I try to pass on every day. The story could end there, with success and vindication. But the real ending came later. Quieter. In a moment no one else saw. I was sitting in my office, now running a company with 3,000 employees, when I found an old notebook from my car-dwelling days. Inside, written in desperate handwriting, was a promise I'd made to myself. If I make it, I'll never forget this feeling. I'll never let anyone feel this alone with their dreams. Below it, I'd written a number, $500. The amount that could have changed everything if someone had believed in me enough to invest it. That's why, even now, every month, I personally review micro-grant applications for exactly $500 from dreamers whose families don't believe in them. No business plan required. No proof of concept. Just a dream and a promise to pay it forward someday. Because sometimes $500 isn't about the money. It's about someone believing you're worth the investment. The last scene I'll share is this. It's 3 a.m., and I'm in my office because old habits die hard. My phone rings. It's a young founder I'd invested in, crying because her family just held an intervention to force her to quit her startup. "They say I'm delusional," she sobs. "They say I'm embarrassing them." "Pack your things," I tell her. "There's a guest room in my apartment and a desk in my office. You're not alone." Because that's what we do. We who were told we were failures, who were mocked for our dreams, who succeeded despite our families, instead of because of them. We find each other. We build our own families. We create the support we never had. And we never, ever dim our light again. Have you ever had to choose between family approval and pursuing your dreams? What would you do if the people who should support you the most became your biggest obstacles? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below about overcoming family doubt or finding your chosen family who believed in you when others didn't. Have you ever had to choose between family approval and pursuing your dreams? What would you do if the people who should support you the most became your biggest obstacles? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below about overcoming family doubt or finding your chosen family who believed in you when others didn't. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories about triumph over adversity. And if you know someone who needs to hear that their dreams are valid even without family support, please share this with them. Sometimes knowing you're not alone in the struggle makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, your worth isn't determined by your family's ability to see it. You are allowed to succeed beyond their imagination. You are allowed to build your empire, even if you have to build it alone. And when you do make it, you get to choose who deserves to celebrate with you. Stay strong, dreamers. Your breakthrough is coming.